Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, where purpose driven entrepreneurs turn self sabotage into self compassion and rise into their power. I'm your host, Lauren Perlingi, here to share real conversations and the tools to help you create a business and life aligned with your soul. So, we're going to dive into today's conversation with Melissa. And Melissa is an integrative mental health professional, and she bridges the science and sacred wisdom to help sensitize women and remember who they are. So, and we'll hear a little bit about her story, and we're also going to explore human design and how it can completely shift your experience in relationships and how it can help you understand not just the people that we love, but the patterns that shape who we connect. Welcome, Melissa. I'm so happy to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you, Lauren. It's such a privilege to be here and talk with you.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your journey this far. Like, where did you kind of start and where you are now?
Gee, when people ask that question, it's like, well, let me go back to the beginning, beginning of my life. But I mean, really, when we talk about sensitivity, which is one of those specialty areas for me, I was a sensitive kid. Of course, it's a trait that, roughly 20% of us come into this world with, but I didn't know that then. There wasn't research about it. I just knew like, I felt things a lot, and very deeply. And so by high school, I was fascinated with psychology and like, well, what makes people operate? Why do people do what they do? Right. And so I was actually in the mental health field at 19, working in lots of psychiatric wards. So I got really like a full experience of, that range of psychology, abnormal, right, to what we consider healthy psychology. Um, and I also lost my brother at that time when I was 19. So I would say, like, really, I had this great life. And then all of a sudden it was like, ooh, like, now let's go deeper, learn about these complexities of relationships in life. So, yeah, that's where my mental health career started on a like locked psychiatric ward and, yeah, navigating grief.
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to say, I feel for you. Not that I've had that experience, but one of my friends actually is in nursing school, and we were talking, and she said, "Lauren, you just have no idea." And I was like, "Well, I have an idea about mental health. Like, I'm not a professional, but I can see it from a picture, like the lens of like." It's just not talked about. I mean, I think now more than ever it is because we are bringing that awareness to society. But she's
mhm.
like, but it's really not, because she's actually doing, her like clinicals in the psychiatric ward. And obviously you can speak on this too, that, it just makes me so sad because it's like, I think if we heal that aspect of society, or at least bring more awareness to individuals so they can have the tools to heal themselves, then we will still have that problem, right? It's duality. It's, we need, dark light, all of that together. But I feel like just hearing her talk, she was like, the hardest part of it is when she had to go to the kids psychiatric. And I was just like, I know. It's
Yeah.
just, I could feel the heaviness when she was talking about it. And I'm like, so I'm sure you can definitely resonate with that too. And is that actually when you were like, I need to go deeper into relationships? Is that where you found human design, or what did that look like for you?
No, no, it definitely was not when human design actually found me. Um,
Oh,
no, yeah, no. Um, so children and family services was definitely an area that I did go into. So I started
okay.
with the adults and then was working in child psychiatric wards too. But, I've
Okay.
always been, drawn to wanting to support kids, right? And having their needs met and understanding them. But I would say, my journey shifted, like 19 years later, when I had a spiritual awakening. Like I literally had worked the gamut of, mental health clinics, hospitals, right, substance abuse, trauma, doing therapy in different modalities and locations. But yeah, then I had a spiritual awakening and everything shifted. And that's really when my path became, as a holistic psychotherapist, but as a holistic wellness practitioner, and just delving into different energy modalities. And I really wanted to understand, like, what the heck happened? How do I understand this? And how can I support anybody else who may be going through this? Because it's spontaneous, it wasn't something like I meditated and all of a sudden, like, oh, here it is. It was like I literally sat down and watched a movie and went to sleep and woke up a different person. So it was like, what,
Yeah.
Um, so science of mind, philosophy, and things like that is what started to ground me in more of that holistic understanding, that metaphysical, which is actually, I was in a spiritual center, like that's where I was really getting nourished once I had this awakening. And that's when one of the women there, she was like, oh, I did this training in human design. And I was just like, ooh, what's that? Now,
Yeah.
by this time, I had gone through all kinds of relationship changes, because a spiritual awakening like that, I ended up divorcing. I was married 20 years. I had 2 kids, and all of a sudden, I found myself, separated and welcoming a new child in this world. So a lot was happening. And she was like, do you want to know? And I was like, okay. And so she's sharing, like, I had no idea what manifesting generator meant, right? And she's telling me that. And then she started telling me about the emotional waves I had and a channel of struggle. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to hear anything else. No, thank you. And I literally was like, I'm done. But for some reason, it came back and I started to self study, because I was like, all right, I want to know more. If it's going to help me understand what the heck is happening to my life, I'm open. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very similar story. So I was going to say, when after I asked the question of like, is that what you found human design? And I was like, you were like, that found me. That's literally what I should have said.
yeah.
Was it 15 years ago? I, like I was just on, I don't know, probably Instagram. I think I found it on Instagram, or no. And then I was like, what's this? Okay. So I did my chart and just like never, I was like, okay, this is too much. Like, I think that was like my first
Yeah.
really spiritual awakening, I guess, in a sense, when I
Sure.
started to be like, I need to open my eyes. Why I was questioning things, right?
Yeah.
And then, through my 3 near-death experiences, I realized it came back around 7 years ago. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, maybe, and I was just looking for, like, I needed answers.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, I'm like, what? I think this is wrong. I think I did my chart like 5 times. And then it was like, well, I guess it's not wrong. So, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the emotional authority, because you just said you had emotional authority.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of data on it, I feel like, or research on it, or just like people experiencing with it. I think now more than ever there is. And it's more of like just us telling our experiences, having an emotional authority, because we are all programmed to emotionally react to things. So now when you don't emotionally react to things and you respond, you actually realize what you're not actually supposed to responding when you feel an emotion. But what happens
Mm-hmm.
at 45 seconds, or 90 seconds, the emotion goes through your body. But then what happens when you have trauma? It gets stuck. So then how do you make a decision? And like, people ask me that, and I'm like, well, there is a process, and let's not go there right now. But I'm just letting you know that if you feel emotion, please don't make a decision. Please don't say anything. Like, that's like the, that's like the surface level thing. And I feel like, people can resonate with me. I'm sure you too, when we say, oh yeah, I always made emotional decisions. If I was happy, sad, whatever, and then I would feel regret, because I'm like, well, I don't even want to do that. And it's like, yeah, because you've made a decision when you were an emotional. So you do that so many times. And I'm still learning to this day. I mean, I've self-studied for 7 years now. I'm not perfect. I still make emotional decisions. It's still going to happen. Do I make them as much? No. If somebody asks me a question, I tell them, I'll let them know, because I don't say I'll think about it, because I feel like then I'm overthinking and I don't let my body feel it. So it's like, let me feel into it, or something like that.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I think
That's so.
I feel like it's game changing, like it's life changing. And again is life changing in relationships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we need to know ourselves. And I mean, I think that's the biggest, I mean, that's the number one relationship that a lot of people don't even give attention to. It's
Right.
like, what is your relationship like with yourself? How
Yeah.
kind are you to yourself? How well are you tending to your own needs? And as a sensitive woman, I mean, I I mean, I'm pretty open with my clients, right? Like I've lived through my own trauma. I used to be what I would call a high strung person. I used to think I couldn't change, like, and I'm in this field to help other people. And not that I didn't help other people, but the, we need to be able to meet ourselves where we are first, which then allows us to help even more people to recognize it's really be in right relationship with yourself, be your own best friend, N-
Right.
know yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely really important. Yeah. It's actually one of, if somebody were to book a call with me, I literally need to know what your relationship with yourself is. So I know exactly what, I mean, I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
but it's always, and I was this way too. I hated myself at some point, like in some point in my journey, and it was everybody else's fault. I played the victim
Yeah.
a lot of situations, and I blamed everybody to the point that I was so by myself that thank God to the universe that I looked around and I'm like, there's nobody to blame. Oh my God.
Mhm.
What does this
Mhm.
mean? Then I had to look at myself in the mirror and switch that and then of course the awareness kept coming up and just kept coming up, and it's uncomfortable, and I had to be vulnerable with myself. And
Right.
eventually I realized, and I mean, if you hate yourself, you hate your life, or, it doesn't, that's actually a good thing, because that means you can change, you can
Mm.
do something different. It's not a good thing
Mm.
that you hate yourself. Maybe that's not the right word to say, but it's where if you have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
and starting just one little thing, because and again, talking about relationships, and I'm sure you can kind of resonate with this, is I don't think the world knows that you attract who you are.
Right.
So there's this big thing about, and maybe you can speak more on this too, energetically. It's like, why do I keep attracting bad partners? My mom
Mm.
actually asked me that like years ago, and I was like, I don't know. I think I'm a good person, and then I'm realizing, holy shit, I'm actually not a good person because I treat people the same way they treat me. And
Mm.
I was treating them, obviously I had, I knew what empathy felt like. Some people don't,
Mhm.
and I attracted it that way. But it's always like outward. I see this all the time online, and I don't, I just know this is like what they have to learn. But it's like, you do
Yeah.
you. And then I'm like, that used to be me.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
like they did this, they did that. And sometimes I invite people to think of like, but what are you doing? You know?
Mhm.
And I think
Right.
that's actually what human design has taught me.
Yeah.
And even to this day, when I feel conflict or like my behavior is like not what I want it to be,
Mhm.
it's what human design energetically taught me. So can you kind of teach us or talk about like you learning the energetics behind human design, like the types, the strategies, the authorities? Can you kind of reframe that way and how you understand it and how you teach people about it in a relationship dynamic?
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't necessarily say like it's only from the human design lens because again, I was in quantum, neuroscience, quantum physics became something that I studied even before human design found me. So I would say there's different layers to what I understand, and of course now being quantum biology health trained. So I'll just say, the energetics about it are like you're speaking to, right? The experiences that we have in our lives are a reflection of what's going on within us, right? And it's not meant to punish us, right? It's not like, we're not bad people if we're having an experience with somebody, that we are feeling very traumatized by, right? Like if you were saying you're in a relationship with someone, it's that way, right? It's more of this Well, the heart has the largest electromagnetic field. And so that's what's emanating out into the field around us, right? Like there's all this space that, it doesn't mean it's empty, right? And so, again, quantum biology is about the frequency of life. And so when we understand that, what we're feeling, what we're believing, right? What we're emanating out into the field is what will then be brought back to us, mirrored for our own evolution, right? So
Right.
it is painful and you can get in that, um the drama triangle, right? Of victim, rescuer, persecutor, and stay in that. But that's where awareness, right, lifts us up out of that, where then we can start recognizing, like, okay, I'm in this too. It's not just that person. Let me
Right.
look at what's going on for me. How am I thinking about this situation? How am I feeling? How am I responding? Am I being true to me? Because that's what I've come to understand is all of what's being reflected in our outer world is an invitation for us to really get to know and access our gifts. If we're raised and we're not honored and supported in our design, which whether we're talking human design, because most people don't know about that, they're not going to know how to nurture a manifester type of
Right.
child that's different than a projector child, right? Like,
Mhm.
so, and then roughly 20% of us are highly sensitive and 80%, are not. So again, we're all brought into this world and given like, here's your blueprints, just run the show. So it's like, it's when we start tuning in and going, well, who am I really, and do I want these blueprints because they keep bringing me this kind of relationship or this kind of work challenge, whatever it may be, So it's a lot of, we're looking outside of ourselves for years before we realize, like, oh, I need to look inward. I need to really understand, what am I feeling? What am I believing? Is that really who I want to be? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that too. Cause and that actually, I literally had an aha moment myself because when I first started studying like traditional human design, it was okay. It was like a surface level, right? And then I got into quantum human design. And then I was like, oh, quantum physics, all, the quantum field. Then it was gene keys. And then I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh. And it's basically like I've always been obsessed with astrology, always,
Yeah.
ever since I was very young. So
Yeah.
I always understood that from that place, So, um, it's, I love the way that you said it like that because it is only about ourselves. And I needed to figure out for me why I kept attracting something. So I feel like I'm saying this too because when people bring this to me and ask
Mhm.
me these questions, I usually say, "Well, what are you doing in the situation?" And
Yeah.
I usually work with a lot of people that were, where I was in the beginning, victim of what I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay. All right, we're going to start from the beginning. And then, like, I'm
Mhm.
explaining that, I love that you called it the drama triangle. It's actually so much better. I like that actually better than the trauma triangle because, it's like you're bouncing around in this triangle and you're like, how do I get out? And
Yeah.
it's really what you said. Work more on yourself because energetically, one day it's not magic. It's just one day you're like, huh, I don't feel so victimized anymore. And it's like, I don't feel like I need to actually be the one that's doing that. And then it's like, oh, I don't feel like I need to be the hero in everybody's story,
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you kind of tell the listeners about what energy type do you see the most frequency like clashing in relationships and why?
Well, to be honest, I don't really have a lot of information in that sense. I mean, when
Okay.
I am working with women, I can tell you that the majority of the women who are attracted to me, right, through the field are
Yeah.
generator types. So
Right.
they're definitely resonating, on multiple levels with my own design and what they're here to learn. Um, and as far as other designs, I mean, because again, it's not just the type. right? It's also, we have to remember the profile is the costume we're wearing. And so in that sense, like I can tell you too, like there's certain, like before we started recording, I told you I'm a 3-5 profile, and I do not have any 3-5 clients that stay long term, right? Because that's just a very unique path. I have a child that has that profile, which has been incredible and challenging. Um, and
Right.
I can tell you, you know, just my own personal experiences with different energy types. But mostly predominantly my work is always with generators. I have worked with manifestors as well. Um, and this is long term, right? Because most of the time, I mean, again, as a projector, you know, I can only work with a projector so far, because they're here to again learn their gifts and also recover from any conditioning, which is the biggest thing for most of us, right? Is
Yeah.
recover from all the conditioning.
Yeah.
But as a parent, as a manifesting generator parent of projector children, like that was the most enlightening for me, like to recognize the impact I have on them that is different, because I also have a manifesting generator child. So I have two projector children and a manifesting generator child. And and of course they each have different profiles as well,
Right.
but just to witness how different the dynamic is between each of them. And all three of my children have what, you know, that sensory processing sensitivity trait that 20% of us have. So they're
Yeah.
very intuitive, very introverted, very intelligent, you know, very loving and kind and caring, and just like the brightest lights, you know. The depth of
Yeah.
caring that sensitive beings have, I just feel like that's the greatest gift, you know. If we are a sensitive person, or we have somebody who's sensitive in our life, it's just like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
love, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like my daughter too, and I'm thinking of my mom as a manifesting generator. So could you imagine, just by your experience, that her not even knowing what human design was, right?
Right.
And me just learning about it, and I'm a projector. My brother is a manifesting generator. So they
Yeah.
always, and it's through, they always got along. It was always, they were, always like, compatible energetically wise
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
that. I truly feel. But me and my dad are projectors. And
Ah,
once I learned that and I did her chart, I was like, I could actually have so much empathy and compassion for her, because she was a problem at one point in my life. Like she was the reason. Same with
yeah.
my dad. So it's like
Yeah.
this actually helped me have an awareness of, to the point that like forgiveness was not a thing. I couldn't forgive myself, let alone forgive somebody else, then have gratitude for my ex-husband and all of the things that transpired and all of the
Yeah.
things that I allowed to happen.
Right.
Going through all of that, I feel like, if it was, just normal energy and understanding that human design, astrology, just understanding that I chose this, my soul chose this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a reason. And I feel like that for me, and just like, is so enlightening, even for like somebody that's struggling as a parent, or maybe you're just having a challenging time. I mean, I'm not struggling now. I don't like to use that word, but like like having a challenge, because that is parenting. Like I think being a parent, however that looks like for you, that is the hardest job, and it always will be. But it will
Yeah.
feel hard. But then those moments that you get, you're like, oh, I'm actually not I'm actually doing a good job, and
Yeah.
it's just for, but there are moments, it's not, I feel like, especially if you have young ones, maybe, teenagers, depending on wherever they are, I feel like maybe it gets old, maybe it gets better when they get older. I don't know. I don't have that experience yet. So I can't speak on that, but
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. I feel like being a parent is a spiritual journey in and of itself.
yeah,
Like it's we signed up to be like, okay, we're in this. What can be revealed, you
right.
know? Oh my gosh, yeah. And just so you know, my daughter's 26, my son is 24, and then I have a 12-year-old. So
Okay.
I've been through many rough stages. I had a toddler and teens at one time. So I had all that terribleness that we call it all at
Yeah.
once, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely, relationships with them have definitely evolved, and I have learned so much. And to be honest, when I was in human design initially, I think my daughter was 18 and my first son was 16. I actually had readings for them to hear about their design because I
Oh,
really wanted them to see, like, does this resonate with you? They were open to doing it, that was it for them, like just having that. Um, but
yeah.
I would say that that was a real turning point, um, because again, I had divorced, right? So I wasn't with my first two children's dad anymore. And so you have those types of challenges in addition to just being a parent, right?
Right.
Um, but it really shifted everything, when I learned that she was a projector and he was a manifesting generator. And I'm realizing, like, I don't remember what your initial question was, so I want to make sure I'm answering it.
No,
Well,
I was just no, I was asking about originally like just the power of understanding like types, but I know that it doesn't matter about the type. It's more about, like you said, profile. So you were saying that in just your design. So your design could be at any way, like your actual body, how you feel. It could be anything. I'm just in the lens of human design because it's
yeah,
easier for
yeah,
people to understand.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
if this is the first conversation that people are listening to, I feel like there was a lot of nuggets that you gave about parenting. I feel like, because I'm a parent, I feel like I attract, either single moms, single dads, or just parents
mm,
that are just moving through life and it's a change for them.
yeah,
And I feel like, them focusing them on themselves or their kids is really a good way to, like, if you know how your kid operates. That was how I was. I needed to figure out how my daughter operates. And I learned this very young, but I
yeah,
also had the knowledge of, like, she's a generator. So, I being around her sometimes will give me sacral energy if she has an abundance of it. And she's also 5. So of course she has an
yeah,
abundance of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And
I'm
she
with it.
doesn't, yeah, and she doesn't really have trauma. I mean, she has her own encoded trauma, but I'm not giving her my own trauma. She
Mhm,
might be getting some trauma from her biological dad,
mhm.
and we're working with her with that. And I cannot tell you, like, when we're recording this, as we're recording this, it's been very challenging. However, I have a basis of human design of, like, I know what her channels are. I know what her superpowers are. And I, also lean on the gene keys, which is actually where you can find gifts and your gifts. I mean, it's in your human design, but it's just a deeper layer that I feel like is really powerful at a time that you're like, what the fuck is happening? Right?
So
Yeah.
because what we give our attention to grows. And so when we're in the depths of the challenges, right, that are really there as an invitation for us to rise above it, it's
Yeah.
important to have those things that we can give our attention to that are,
Yeah.
as you're saying, our gifts, our strengths, what's good in our lives, right? To be able to give attention there, because that's essential to our
Yeah.
growth and development. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it's not, and I'm gonna put a disclaimer. It's not that toxic positivity that people are saying, like, just avoid it, just keep being
Oh,
positive. And you're just like, no, I
yeah.
need to feel what I need
To
to
feel it,
feel.
to heal it. Yeah.
Feel it and process it, because I used to do that too. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll just be really positive. But I'm like
Yeah.
beaming, especially being a projector, I'm like beaming so much negative energy that's stored that I'm like, I just need to get this out.
Yeah. Well, and
you
that's
know?
so important to recognize, right? Because as you were asking earlier about, like, the relationships, and we were talking about frequency, like, that's what's important to understand. So many suppress, right? And they don't understand, but that's who you're still being. Like, as long as it's still within you, as long as if you are not feeling and healing those traumas of whatever degree they are, they're still emanating off of you. And so that's why we want to feel those uncomfortable feelings. We want to breathe and allow it to move, right? We want to journal, write about it, talk about it, and not in a what we might say complaining way, not at all. This is about healthy expression of this is what I'm recalling right now. This is what's coming up for me, right? And again, not to draw anybody in, but more of like just hear me, like so that person gets to be held in that release. That's so important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for saying that. And even if it's not like I've noticed, there's specific energy types that like, oh, they need to be seen and heard. And I feel like I think every single human that has trauma or has an experience that they experience something dramatic needs to be seen and heard. Like it's, in the, human design world, it's like, oh, projectors probably want to be seen and heard more, but they're not supposed to be, they're not supposed to speak until they're invited. So again, a lot of my projector people, including myself, it's like you get to the level of like trial and error, until you're 30, right? And then you kind of shift out of that. And it's like the more that you speak when you're not invited, the more that you're going to learn that you're wasting your energy because you don't have a lot of energy all the time, that you're going to feel that bitterness, or it's like, oh, can I just ask, hey, can I suggest something? I do that all the time. If I want to suggest something or give somebody advice, can I
Yeah.
suggest this? Obviously, if we're in like a conversation, I don't need to ask for their invitation. That is my invitation.
Right, right,
I
right.
think that is, because if a manifesting generator or generator just tell you your opinion, they don't get like this backlash. Now, if it's a manifester, it's like, that's a little bit different because they come off very closed and they're like not invited. And it's interesting how I've learned that because a lot of people that are close to me are manifestors and we get along so well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think it's because we're polar opposites, like too, of like when we only, if you're a projector and you speak too much, maybe, or you're just giving advice and nobody's listening, you're then going to start to have this opinion or this belief that nobody cares what you're talking about. You're just one, probably talking to the wrong people and you're not waiting to be invited of like, or if you want to speak, it's like, hey, can I tell you this? Because whatever you say is literally what that person needs, but it's just like the kind of way you approach that. I think that's really important in just any relationship in, business, entrepreneurship, just understanding that. Like even that one piece of nugget that I gave somebody who I was doing a whole, session with, they're like, I think that was the answer I needed. Everything else is great, but that's the answer I needed. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to remember too, though, like despite whatever our type is, right? Like the actual channels and strengths, some are manifesting, some are projector. And so
Yeah.
even me, like I have certain, traits or, qualities that are of the projector. So it is best to even wait to be invited to share that, until you're recognized, and acknowledged. And so I think that's a really important piece to understand because especially as sensitive beings or introverts, right? Like sometimes we're the kind of people that are quiet. And so as a manifesting generator, I can be both. I can be in a group setting and I'm sensitive. So I'm watching, I'm observing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not the one that's just jumping in and talking, even though I have the 2034, that's my son earth, so I'm like in the now and here's my thoughts, right? But now I'm sensitive and I'm an introvert, and so I will just wait. And if I'm invited, unless I'm in a particular role, then of course I'm leading. So I
Right.
think it's
Yeah.
important to
And
just recognize that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's too where so the way that I learned, taught myself human design was I did I don't suggest this, but it's just more of a clear example of knowing the channels and the gates and where they are. I mean, I didn't have to teach myself the astrology. I understood that. So I just knew what the sun was. I knew what earth was. I knew how to ground myself. And but my whole chart was more about, I noticed like the shadow is pessimism. So that's like for me, it's like I need to make sure that I stay in the moment, which never did before. So that was really enlightening, and, just kind of flowing, because that's where those blocks get. Or if I'm more, in my shadow of like certain parts, it's important to know that the channels, and I think a lot of people get tied up with the channels too, because they'll look at the channel and like part of it is, you have energy there, but you're not taking account for the transits, and you're not taking account with like other things. And I try to, people intellectualize like, well, I don't have a full channel, so I'm not complete. And I'm like, no, no, no. No, 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 no. That's not what
Right.
that is. It's
It's
just,
always changing. Yeah.
it's always changing. So, the basics of human design is just understanding, like I always tell people, just understand, like just practice with your energy type, strategy, and authority. And then go deeper, however you want to go deeper to understand, yourself. But then, if they're like, well, there's just always like this thing of like, me too. Some of all of my gates and channels, or not all my channels are projectors, like
Mhm.
channels. So sometimes I am supposed to, respond to something versus, wait for the invitation. But I had a conversation, I think it was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, that she did, every single energy type has the word wait. And I think
Mhm.
that is the hard, and when she said that, I was like, oh my God, I mean, I guess I didn't consciously know. I subconsciously, obviously, like was thinking, one thing, but that's actually the pause, wait, like make sure that it's like the right decision. And I feel like that, would you say
Mhm.
that in itself can be really powerful if, you're trying to make a decision, or you're trying to kind of embody the 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 lighter version of yourself, I should say, or if you're
Yeah.
experiencing something sensitive, like how would you kind of help somebody understand when they're, whatever practice they're doing,
Mhm.
what are some practical ways that they can kind of realign their nervous system and restore balance without withdrawing from life or like dimming their light?
Yeah. Well, what's really important to understand is how most of, a lot of people, I'll say, because I don't know all people, right, are
Right.
running the subconscious. I mean, that's up to 95%. And if they've gone unchecked, that's where we have that heavier conditioning, right? And so pausing and connecting with your breath, is what allows you to become fully present, and even using the word embodied, like that's the key. If we're making the decisions from that mental spinning, those old records that play,
Yeah.
then that's not really what's truly being communicated from our body. And when we understand, right, human design, I mean, we have the personality, the conscious side, and we have the design, which is the unconscious side, and that's the body. So again, it's recognizing that it's not the mental that we want to make the decisions with, that we want to we really need to pause and breathe and feel, because it's the sensations, and that's why, again, having a sensory processing sensitivity trait, like, we're primed to get overstimulated, which is why this is self-preservation for highly sensitive people. Pause, connect with your body and your breath, like every day, because otherwise the nervous system is stuck in that stress response, and then sympathetic, activation, it's an everyday, because stress is part of life. It's not negative, right? But if we're stuck in it, that's a problem for all health, all relationships, because then
Yeah.
you're not being able to just be calm and present and authentically respond. You're responding with the conditioning, those reactive repetitions.
Yeah. And I do want to say that's like a reminder to myself too, because I think I was, when I have to do tech things in my business, I
Mhm.
think I go down a mental, like spiral of like, I literally had to say to myself, Lauren, just breathe. I'm just trying to feel and process like this. And it's different. And I just tell myself that, like,
Mhm.
ask for help. It was, the moon, when we're recording this, there was the new moon on Tuesday, and
Mm-hmm.
I just heard ask for help. So I asked
Mm-hmm.
for help, and it's like, launching my virtual retreat in the beginning of November. Like, it's all new. And before, oh God, my poor husband. He is like, he could just tell. And he goes, "Are you still doing your retreat?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're not, you're different this time." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not, I don't feel different sometimes. I just had a spiral a couple, like, hours ago, but
Yeah.
it's different. Like, I'm going at things differently because I'm reminding myself, because like when I say us, like I'm including myself. Like I still go through
Yeah.
levels of, layers of this. So when people tell me their experience, I always come back and say, well, this was mine, because I feel like even that can make people feel like, you know, I just feel like sometimes in this, the spiritual community or just in general society, it's like people are up here and it's like really not. We're at the same, we're side by side, but maybe just a different frequency. And I feel like that's really, really important too, because people have said to me, "Well, you look like you have your life figured out." I'm like, "Have you listened to my podcast or anything I talk about?" Because
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. And I feel like I don't know how to not be, real and raw. Sometimes I probably shouldn't say too much, but I do anyway, just because it's like, it's going to resonate with somebody. And if it doesn't resonate with you, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
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 I think it's really important to be, vulnerability has really been coming up too a lot for just like conversations that I've been in, my own vulnerability. And I feel like, taking one of my incarnation cross is literally to help people take their masks down. So I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
In different, I know we have to wear different masks, different places. However, I'm really good at wearing a mask. So it's like, I know when somebody's wearing a mask, and
Mm-hmm.
what you have to wear different, you have to be different people in different roles. And, but at the end of the day, I feel like through all of this, I feel like, and I'm sure you as well, that, any system that you use, to understand yourself, I think is truly important. And, being misunderstood, obviously the Enlightened Misfits, or disconnected is really important, of like how either you guide your, clients back to themselves, however that looks like, or by to understand themselves, I think is really truly important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've definitely, it's funny how you say like different masks, because there was a point in my own career where I was like, okay, I have the hat on of, I'm a therapist, and so I keep it in this lane. And there became a point when clients would actually start talking about human design with me. And then I was like, okay, that's fine, because I used to be like, nope, my business, for any human design or BG5, because that's where my consultation and training was in, is the business side, just because I like the positive language. Um, but then it was like, it became a point where it was like, this is not me being true, being authentic by separating, right? And so that's where I have found it's really helpful, to allow them to discover their chart. And not that everybody's interested in doing a deep dive, obviously, like we have in training and things like that, but it's really helpful, because sometimes people don't understand, like, well, why do I not have a relationship, or why do I not have more people in my life? Why do they seem to have, and there's a lot of, we look outward. I mean, that's the way our eyes are, right? We're seeing out there. And
Right.
so we're wondering, like, well, why don't I have that? And I find that that's when the chart can be really helpful, in the sense of, look at how much self-empowerment you have in your chart. Like, this is about you. Oh, you're a right angle. Well, again, you're a trailblazer. You may not feel like a leader, because you don't have any followers, but you're also not designed to be a follower. Like, this is your path, right? And again, we all have a unique path, but I'm just saying, like, these different nuances can help empower women that I'm working with, to see, like, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Like, let's understand what's really you, what's conditioning, and how to help you realign with you, right? But let's help you understand that that's your this is your curriculum in a sense for this lifetime. It may not be to be that person that you thought you were supposed to be, or
Right.
again, it's more of there's nothing wrong with you that you don't have this huge social environment, where everybody knows your name kind of thing, right? Like
Right.
you're here to do you, and it's okay. Not all relationships are meant to be forever, you know?
Right. Yeah, that was something that I have to remind myself too, is not everybody in your life is there forever.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lesson that I had to learn for, I still am learning it, of like when I know that expiration is coming or when it should happen because I let them stay too long or, something like that. And it's just like, it's really empowering and enlightening. Like you said, looking at my chart, if I don't understand something in relationships or if it's in the gene keys, like right now I'm obsessed with gene keys. I mean, I could be obsessed with something else,
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
different system or,
Yeah.
like something like that. But I feel like, just if I can I've my whole life just wanted to understand why I decided to come here, what was my life purpose,
Yeah.
understanding that I volunteered to come here. Like I haven't been on earth forever. But then
Hmm.
it's like you get into that rabbit hole and cycle of like, but where was I? Where did I come from? And it's like, what am I doing here? Because I feel like that gave me a sense of purpose, especially because at some point in my life, I didn't want to be here anymore. I thought that was like the easiest way out, and it's like, no, hello, you don't get to control that simulation.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's just like when you looking at different lenses, like however it is through, you know, whatever relationship people are in, and
Mm.
especially those heart-centered women, or sensitive women that are listening right now. What was like one piece of advice? It doesn't have to be based on human design. It just could be any piece of advice that you would give somebody right now listening.
Oh, well, totally. I invite people to really pause and, put their hand on their heart and to just breathe into that because that's where their light is. That's where all the love is that's needed for themselves and to be able to share an experience with others. It's all right there and that there's nothing wrong with them, and it really is to build that relationship with themselves and that love, that light,
Yeah.
and to let their heart guide them and not their head and those old programs and, nonsense that gets played on those records. I'm not saying that it's super easy, but it's worth it, and each person listening is worth it, Connect with your heart and breathe and just feel that life within you. Yeah, you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And you don't have to figure it out. It's okay. Not all of us need to figure it out. Some of us want to. Like, yeah, why am I here? What's the purpose? But it's
Yeah.
okay. We don't have to. Everybody's different. And everybody's reason for being here is unique, but everybody's here for a reason and to trust
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I like the saying, everything happens for a reason. And I reverted that to be like, if something's happening that I don't understand, because I'm so driven to, I gotta find the answer. It
Yeah.
kind of is a reminder to myself too, that like, I don't need to know the answer. It will come when it needs to
Yes.
come because I'm not open to accepting it. I'm going to analyze it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
where can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, so my website is realignwithmelissa.com. So that's where I have blogs. I have a highly sensitive series that I wrote to help anyone who's curious, like, how do I understand the trait? Because again, I bridge science, sensitivity, and soul. So they can learn about me there. I'm also on Substack, Realign with Melissa, and Instagram. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah, I'll
yeah.
make sure all of those, if you're listening to this, they will be below in the show notes, or if you're watching this over on YouTube, you can go check out her links below there. Well, I loved this conversation, reminding us that our awareness creates compassion. And when we understand our design, we can move forward and to harmony and get out of those lower end vibrations. So, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and being here with us on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. And if you wanted to join me inside the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, it's our community for enlightened entrepreneurs rising into purpose. You can connect with me on Instagram at The Mermaid Light, or there is a link below in the show notes as well. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.